Okay, go right ahead.
All right. Everyone, welcome to the Library Commission's January 25th meeting. This is a teleconference meeting with Library Commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating remotely to ensure proper social distancing in this federal, state, and local emergency. I would like to introduce staff and Library Commission members present: Mayrin Bujagic, Alan Cohen, David Earhart, myself, Katie Hadrovich, and Yen Tran are commissioners that are currently present. And it looks like we've got Sean Reinhart, the Director of Library and Community Services, and Nick Shegda, Assistant Library Services Director. And Nick is also the staff liaison for the Library Commission. Nick, would you please provide instructions to the Library Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
We ask members to unmute themselves when they're speaking, first of all, but we ask members to keep themselves muted and their cameras on unless it's an emergency, and then to raise your hand if you'd like to speak, wait to be recognized by the chair, and then unmute yourself. Members of the public, which we now have a couple in attendance, welcome. This is a special meeting of the Library Commission, which means that there's no normal general public comment period. But there will be, the chair will call for public comment on each individual item as it comes up. If you would like to make a public comment, please type a message in the chat or use that little raise hand function. The commissioners are not going to be minding the chat window or replying to messages in chat. I'll be minding the chat window. But if you want to make a comment, raise your hand or type a message in chat. And then when you're recognized, I'll unmute you. You can come on in and make your comment. I think that's it as far as sort of how the business goes. I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Hadrovich.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Kristen Leap has also just joined the meeting. At every special meeting of the Commission, members of the public have the right to directly address the Commission on any item listed on the agenda at a time designated by the chair. Each speaker may address the Library Commission once under public comment for each item for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. And it looks like Commissioner Sukanya Guha has also just joined the meeting. Welcome. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Okay. So our regular business. Under regular business, the Library Commission considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require Library Commission approval. So the first item, C1, is to approve the minutes from the November 16th, 2020 Library Commission meeting. Are there any clarifying questions from the Commission before taking public comment? Doesn't appear so. Nick, do we have any public comment on this item?
I do not see a hand raise or a message in chat, so no comment on this item.
Okay, so I'll open for Library Commission discussion. Is there any discussion of the agenda? Okay. Nick, do we actually need a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes,
Okay.
we do need a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
Okay, it looks like Mayrin is approving and Sukanya has seconded. So Nick, would you take a roll call vote on the motion to approve our November 16th, 2020 meeting minutes?
I will do so, and I'll use the order on my screen here. So Vice Chair Earhart, how do you vote?
Yes, approved.
Commissioner Bujagic?
You're on mute.
Yes.
Commissioner Tran?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Approved.
Commissioner Leap? A thumbs up will work.
I was pressing the space bar. Approved.
Commissioner Guha?
Approved.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, I also approve. Thank you. Okay, C2, recommend the Library and Community Services Department strategic Plan Update 2020 and Beyond. I believe that's your final report on this. Is that right?
That's correct. Would the commissioners like me to pull it up on the screen? I know you probably have seen this before, but I can do a short presentation on this, and then if you want, you can take public comment. Does that sound like a good way to proceed, Chair?
Yeah, that sounds perfect, I think. Thank you.
Okay. Let me pull this up on the screen. Can everyone see that? Hopefully,
I can
yes.
see it, yes.
Great. We've been, staff have been working on this, as you know, pretty much since the library and community services departments were merged in July of 2020. That plus the challenges of the COVID pandemic and the reductions in staff and departmental budget have been sort of factors in why we needed to make a new plan. Any of those in and of themselves would probably be cause for a new taking a look at our strategic directions, but all three together were definitely a call to take a look at our strategic directions. So what's happened in this iteration of the plan is not much different. There's no surprises really in things that you have seen when staff have presented the plan in its sort of previous iterations. We still have the guiding principles here to align the goals with City Council priorities and direction, to make sure that we are prioritizing community needs and that are providing equitable access to the public resources for all of our community, delivering excellent customer service, working on that service adaptation plan for the department, and keeping an eye on and keeping working on some long-term projects that we had been working on before, making sure that we are transparent and accountable to the community, and responding to evolving community needs. So this plan, as you all know, is a living document. It's not set it and forget it. So once we've developed the plan, we will keep coming back and keep adapting the plan to the community's needs and to changing situations. But it does give us some very clear goals as staff about what direction we should be going in and where we should be putting our efforts. And so the 8 major strategic directions are delivering excellent customer service, advancing the Menlo Park Community Campus project, providing services and programs that respond to community needs, maintaining efficient operation systems and facilities, building our staff, creating meaningful staff development, engagement, and communication, being transparent and having real two-way communication with the community, putting diversity, equity, and inclusion as one of our priorities in the services and programs that we provide, and then figuring out a way to do what we do safely and adapting to our COVID and post-COVID world. The goals are listed, and then there are tasks listed underneath them. And the tasks are meant to be these SMART goals. And SMART stands for, I always forget the acronym, so I'm glad it's written here. Specific, measurable, achievable, results-oriented, and time-bound. And then they are listed here sort of in word form, a little bit of history about how the library and community services departments separately develop their strategic directions, and then a little bit of the history about how we put them together. So, and then sorry, didn't mean to right click. This is sort of the document that we'll be posting around everywhere in the department. These strategic directions, underlying goals, and tasks. So at that, I'm gonna stop and see if anybody in the commission has any questions, and then also Chair Hadrovich, give you a chance to call for public comment to see if anyone has any public comment that they would like to make. And I'll stop sharing my screen so we can see each other's faces here.
All right, thank you. So commissioners, are there any clarifying questions before we ask for public comment? Doesn't appear so. So Nick, would you like to open the floor for any public comment on this item?
Sure. If any of our attendees would like to make a comment on this item, please either raise your hand or type me a message in the chat window so I can recognize you. And I'll give folks a second to mash buttons because I know sometimes it takes me a minute to put down my tea and find the button to mash. And I do not see any public comment on this at this time.
Okay, in that case, we can open it for Library Commission discussion. Is there any points anyone would like to make related to this strategic plan update? David, go ahead.
Yeah, it's kind of a tangential question, but the fact that we're looking at tonight, and it's the first time that it's LCS kind of in toto in a single document. I guess I mean it's at Sean, I guess. Is there a future state where there's an LCS commission as opposed to just, because I sort of feel like now we've got a library commission and we have a strategic plan that really is much bigger than that based on the reorganization from last year. Does the CS part of the LCS get appropriate, support in, if this is all done, I mean, from the library commission side of things, I guess is the general question.
Parks and Recreation is also weighing in on this, aren't they? Or no?
Yes. So thank you for the great question. Yes, the Parks and Recreation Commission has been sort of in parallel to the Library Commission since I think October, looking over the plan. And certainly the plan encompasses all the department operations, and certainly both commissions have been weighing in. I don't think that there's any plan to alter the composition or mission of the two commissions. There's plenty of activity and advisory work to go around with the two commissions as they are composed separately. Of course, at any point in time, City Council could elect to like reevaluate that and go a different direction. But similar to other commissions in the city, like there is a planning commission that kind of oversees most, if not all, of the kind of the land use decisions. But in addition to that, there's a separate commission just to talk about kind of environmental quality issues. There's another commission about complete streets and sort of the streetscape and pedestrian and bike friendly. And there's plenty of work for all those commissions to go around. So I've not had any indication that we would need to combine the two commissions. But certainly each commission has a very important role to play in the development of like the strategic plan and then additional planning and operational efforts going forward. So I hope that helps answer the question. I think I understood sort of the whole question and got everything in my response.
David, did you have any further comment?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Kristen, go ahead.
Also, we are free, whereas the library and community services, like the departments, cost money to the city, which is now a little bit tighter. We do not. So they can have as many commissions as they can staff or as they can fill.
I guess I am curious related to that because we reviewed this in the Parks and Recs. Does the city look for an endorsement or a recommendation of this plan from more than just the two commissions? Are there other volunteer commissions that are weighing in or being asked for feedback on this report besides just those two?
At this level of detail, it's the Library Commission and the Parks and Recreation Commission that are sort of by virtue of their charter advisory to the City Council on these topics specifically. And the City Council will be receiving this plan as part of their goal setting process, which is taking place later this month on the 30th. And yes, a recommendation from the commission would be welcomed to have a formal indication, you know, from the commission of in their advisory role to the council, you know, hey, we've looked at this and this is, you know, we recommend its contents.
Okay. Anyone else that would like to comment or at this point? No, okay. I did notice that most of this is going forward, although it says 2020 and beyond. I know there's a little bit in it. I saw things that you started, I think the earliest was June of 2020, if I'm not mistaken. There wasn't anything earlier than that, but I thought it was a very comprehensive, well thought out plan that there are so many unknowns going forward that I can certainly understand how you're looking at this, you know, with your fingers crossed, but anticipating that you're going to have to modify it going forward. I personally thought that you did a great job of trying to capture where we are in this moment in time and what you can do now and what you're hopeful that is a practical way to move forward. So if no one else has any comments, I think where we are is that we are looking for a motion to recommend this strategic plan update to City Council. Is that right, Nick? Do I have it right? Yes. And I see Kristen has her hand raised to make that motion. Is there someone that would like to? Okay, Mayrin has seconded the motion. So Nick, I think it's up to you now to go through and take a
All
roll
right,
call.
I will call the roll, and this time I won't leave you out, Katie, I promise. So the motion is to recommend the Library and Community Services Strategic Plan 2020 and beyond. Commissioner Earhart, how do you vote?
Yeah, I support it.
And Commissioner Bunyagic
Yes.
and Commissioner Tran
Yes.
and Commissioner Cohen
Yes.
and Commissioner Leap
In favor.
and Commissioner Guha
Yes.
and Chair Hadrovich.
Yes, I also recommend it.
Great, the motion passes unanimously.
Thanks
Okay.
and great work, everyone.
Yeah,
To
a lot
you.
of work.
Thank you.
Okay, item C3 is to review and update our Library Commission agenda calendar. And Nick, I suppose maybe it's a good idea for you to put our calendar up on the screen if you can, but while it's up on the screen, or once it's up on the screen, I'll be looking for any clarifying questions from the commission before taking public comment on what we've got on our calendar right now. Anybody, if you have it, I can't see everyone because we're looking at Nick's screen, so feel free to just shout out, and if nobody says anything, then we'll go for public comment. Okay, Nick, you want to open it for public comment on this item?
Sure, it's a little bit of a bare calendar, as you can see there, but we had a lot of things that were sort of unknown at the end of the year, so I'm expecting that we'll start populating them.
Okay, hang on, Kristen, did you want to say something before we see if there's a public comment? Go ahead.
So I'm guessing that we will start populating the calendar with the things that are at the bottom.
Yes, I think
Yes.
we will. So, okay, public comment, any, Nick?
Sure, at this time, if anyone has any public comment they'd like to make on this item, please either use that raise hand function or type a message in the chat window so that you can be recognized and make your public comment. And I do not see any public comment.
Okay. In that case, we'll open it for discussion. I am wondering, I just wanted to lead with the discussion, although I helped put together the agenda. I'm wondering if in the future it maybe makes sense for us to discuss our calendar at the end of the meeting, because it does seem that sometimes we talk about the agenda and what we're going to put on it, and then we go through other topics and we start to see things we want to revisit. So it seems to me, from the history of the way we work, we add things to it throughout the whole meeting.
I think that's fair. And if that's something that you'd like to do as a commission, I think we can do that.
Certainly, since it's at this point in our agenda, we can talk about it, and we can talk about any items that members of the commission do want to see specifically attached to the agenda that aren't on it. And other than that, I think Kristen's point is a good one, that maybe this is a good time for us to look at those unscheduled future items and see if we want to pin them to any specific dates. Anyone else have thoughts right now? Again, I can't see everyone, so if you did want to say something, please just feel free to unmute, and hopefully we won't have people running over each other. Nick, do we have any date that the city council has given us to do a semi-annual update? I don't believe that I've gone in front of them since before March of last year.
Right. We don't at this point. I think a lot of the things through the bulk of last year, the council was really focusing on responding to the COVID pandemic. And there were a lot of meetings and a lot of work that they had to do to sort of work through adjusting the city's budget and responding to the pandemic. So some things like commission reports got pushed out a bit. Also, as we'll talk about a little later in one of our informational items, the city council is meeting this Saturday to do their annual goal setting. And so it's just sort of a heads up that, you know, the Library Commission has been working on its plan and has a work plan, but that the city council may change some of their priorities and directions, and the commission may want to take another look at their work plan just to pull it into alignment with the council's goals, and that's why that's teed up for next month.
Right. I noticed that as well, because we have it both for this month and next, but knowing that they're meeting, I think that's a tradition that we usually take a look at our plan in lieu of their agenda.
Yeah, I think we put it on this month's meeting just as sort of a heads up that
refresh
by the
ourselves.
way, here's the work plan that you have now, and also that the council is going to be redoing their work plan. Also, just another reminder that next month we have the same situation for the third Monday Library Commission that we did for this month, and that is Monday is a holiday. So you'll see that cancellation notice go out, and then you'll see an agenda for the following Monday come out.
Right. Okay. And so in terms of the Library Commission semi-annual update to council, that sounds like something we need to leave in our parking lot, because we usually go at the invitation of the council, and we haven't received any invitation or know of any likely date that they would be inviting us. The emergency preparedness and safety policy, is that something that you have queued up to have us review at some point soon?
I can jump in on a couple of these.
Yeah,
items.
great.
So regarding the semi-annual update to council, although it isn't calendared yet, it will take a little bit of prep time for the commission to kind of, review what the update would contain. Typically it's the chair that provides the update. So my recommendation would be to tentatively schedule it maybe at the March meeting, with the understanding that, probably it will be scheduled with the council in that latter part of the spring. Just my awareness of their agenda is that it's really full between now and like March, but around the April-May timeframe, they might be able to start fitting in. So you could potentially maybe put it on your March agenda so that you have it kind of bookmarked there. You can kind of get it prepared for when it's actually scheduled. And then regarding the emergency preparedness and safety policy, in the strategic plan, it's strategic direction goal 1.3.b. There is a goal for staff to prepare and revise the emergency and safety manuals and present them to the advisory commissions by June of this year for a review. So maybe we can put that one in June, since that's kind of the timeline for that one to get completed.
And the diversity, inclusivity, and equity policy, is that something that you are drafting now or working on?
Yes, and I think similarly, the target date would be June. The time period, I noticed that there's a typo in the strategic plan, actually, because it says January 2020 to June 2020, and those should have said 2021s. So we'll need to fix that typo.
Okay.
For that policy to be prepared and brought to the commission for review by June of this year. It may be that the city council actually adopts a kind of formalized plan on this topic citywide, but that would likely begin with their goal setting. So we should have plenty of clearer direction. And I don't think that would affect the timeline of getting our policy updated by June.
Okay, okay. And joint meeting with Parks and Rec Commission to discuss the new Bellhaven Community Center. Has Nick or Sean, do you attend those meetings as well in your current positions, or are you blind to what their meetings are what's happening at their meetings?
John attends them all.
Yes. And Nick's attended a few, and I do attend them all. And it would, I think at this point, the design has been it's been approved by council just to expedite that process so it can get constructed. But my understanding of this item was really about the programming of the new facility, which again, back to the strategic plan, I think that's to begin in the summer of this year or a little bit later. And so that would be a really opportune time period to facilitate a joint meeting of the two commissions.
Would you envision that if we were having a joint meeting between those two commissions, it would be for us to begin to know each other and also to receive information related to staff, what you're envisioning, how to allocate resources within the approved structure, so that we might be forming subcommittees or something? I'm just wondering the rollout of how these two commissions would interact with each other. And if anyone else on the commission has ideas about how that would work, please chime in. But I'm curious to, once we set up a joint meeting, what would be our work product or envisioned work product together?
I could take a stab at that. Just one way that it could potentially work is, I think you actually covered it all, Madam Chair, that basically get the two commissions together, at least to have an opportunity for some conversation together, specifically around the Menlo Park Community Campus project. And then one great work product that could come out of a meeting like that is kind of like a joint work plan for how to advise the city, the staff, and the city council about what the community would most benefit from as far as how services and programs are delivered in the new facility. And yeah, that could spin off into various subcommittees or a plan to participate in or help encourage participation by the community in community-focused meetings about what types of programs people want to see inside the facility. Also, just sort of, because all of these different aspects are in the same building and the intent is for them to all work seamlessly together as like a multi-generational community center and library, how those different components interact for like a family that comes in, and some of them want to go to the library, and some of them are seniors and are going to the senior center, and others want to do the fitness programs, and some people are going to want to hop to all three. Just sort of how do those different pieces work together. As kind of some initial sort of thinking out loud, envisioning of what that session might look like as a framework to get it started. I would say between now and then, that's why maybe starting it in the summer, there could be some discussion among the individual commissions about, what each commission and commissioners are kind of hoping to get from a process like that.
I'm curious, do commissions have they ever, or would it be appropriate for the two commissions to work together to sponsor maybe some community presentations? Because I think, having people that are in the public thinking about the comprehensive ways to use this new center, and then how do you get more people to efficiently show up to hear all of that? Would it be appropriate for us to be having commission-sponsored community events? That's we're there, but it's for the public to receive information and provide feedback.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the great, one of the things that makes the commission such an asset to the city is that once a month, you're having public meetings on topics just like this. There's already meetings taking place. And you may recall in like the Bellhaven Library Space Needs Study, there were a number of community presentations that actually happened in the context of the Library Commission meetings that wouldn't preclude, the commission from arranging other public outreach meetings, but you already have kind of a built-in calendar to start from.
So maybe what we're doing is we're keeping our established public commission meetings and then sharing with each other what's coming out of our individual commission meetings, so that we have a joint task force, if you will, that's collaborating together on what's maybe being said at one meeting but not heard by the other commission. Okay, anyone else have, I guess we're talking about our calendar, and I was looking at one of the items on there, and for my own benefit, trying to think ahead to how that would actually work. But does anyone feel strongly about adding anything right now to one of our future meetings? Or should we just wait to see how this year is rolling out to add things as we go?
Before the, go ahead.
David.
My only thought is we have that item number 3 on our work plan, which was about the plan and timeline to periodically review library's public-facing policies and whatever associated with the new sort of shared use. I'll say, is it too early to start, sort of at least framing what that looks like? I mean, I realize the actual occupation is until like 2022, 2023, whatever the date is now. 3. Yeah. So, maybe it's too early to start talking about what those, are really going to look like. But anyway, just something that's sort of forward-looking and would be part of the thing we need to cover eventually. Anyway, just in terms of the things that we had in our work plan that would potentially benefit from a meeting around it, or conversation a couple of times.
Right. And if I can piggyback on that, my assumption is all those different policies that we've got in our parking lot right now, for example, as you're building those and rolling those out to us, my assumption had been that they were in anticipation of being your policies for the new center as well as the entire library system. But if you can answer David's question with my piggyback in context.
Yeah, I think that's correct. When we're building new policies now, we're building policies that go beyond the library, because when you did your work plan, you were really focusing on library related issues, but the department is a combined department. It's library and community services now. So we're looking at policies that will go across all of the services, not just in the library facilities, but at all of the department's facilities. So the gyms and the rec centers and the child care centers and the pools and the new community campus, which is being constructed. So we have to be aware of all of those when we're making policies now. And that doesn't have a lot of difference in some things, but in some things, especially like in the new combined facility, there might be some aspects that will need I don't know when you want to start to put that. I think I think it is good to sort of get a little bit ahead of that. But we probably want to start to have the conversations about services and programs at the facility first. That's just my thinking before we start talking about policies as they relate to the new facility. I don't know.
Is it possible for us in either February or March to have a presentation maybe on just sort of a laundry list of all of the policies that are either being updated or are new from scratch that are anticipated that would be coming in front of our commission or any commissions with targeted dates of completion? And then I am wondering, it makes sense that you're going to be thinking more of global policies, but there must be some that are going to be more of a micro level policy specific to library usage. And so if those were delineated as this is a library only policy, that would be helpful to us.
Yes, if I may, I was going to make the suggestion or recommendation that Menlo Park Community Campus Project should probably be a standing agenda item for the remainder of this calendar, just to ensure that because there is a lot of preparatory work that's going into that project and will continue to go into that project, and review of all the potential policies that might touch that facility, that will need to take place over a period of several months, as well as identifying, how the services would interact and all of those things. So as well as the design itself. So what we could do is with the February of the next meeting, staff could prepare a proposed kind of draft framework along the lines of what's being described here as it relates to policies and all those other preparations, and sort of some proposed timelines. Some of that information is kind of already in various places in the strategic plan, so we wouldn't even really need to reinvent the wheel in some of those areas as far as what the timeframes might be, but there's definitely some gaps, that the strategic plan doesn't go into quite that level of detail. So if the commission's amenable to that, I was going to recommend that we just make that a standing agenda item. And then the other agenda item, which is shown here on the schedule for today, it ended up not going today, is rebuilding library and community services for post-COVID operations. This is a potential focus or part of the focus for the city council goal setting on Saturday. So we would kind of like to wait and hear from the council, what is their direction there or intention for us to, pursue this this project. However, preparing for the post-COVID operations will be the kind of the immediate focus between now and summer. And I was going to propose that we make that a standing agenda item as well. So the rebuilding is sort of like now till summer or fall. And then the Menlo Park Community Campus is, pretty much when construction begins and until the opening, kind of preparing for that as sort of a macro timeframe to consider.
David, go ahead.
We're going to talk about maybe a little bit when we do the update on the community center, project. The sort of I want to describe it. The change in venue for the various activities that are being displaced during the destruction and the demolition and construction. The library itself, the branch library, at the elementary school. I guess the question is, that's a more near-term thing and fairly disruptive as well. Is there any part of those services or that sort of near-term changes to the LCS kind of operating that would need to get reviewed sort of on a periodic basis? The branch is not being torn down, so that's kind of interesting. That's the one part that's not being affected by the activity right now. So is there any part of that which represents something that the commission could provide some benefit in terms of comment or feedback?
My sense is yes. I think because all the library services, they do happen in the context of all the other services that are taking place. Also, there will be some specific things. Although the Bellhaven Branch Library, when it's accessible again, the school's open again, and hopefully, that's by summer that we'll be able to reopen that branch. It will continue to serve the community during the construction of the new center, so that's not a problem. But there may be some activities that previously took place, like in the senior center or the Onetta Harris Center, that it might make, like classes, like Spanish classes for seniors, for example, is a good example, that we might actually have those take place at the Bellhaven Branch Library during the construction period. And then from there, some additional kind of interesting synergies might occur as we really are looking ahead to how does the senior center program kind of interplay with the library program and literacy programs, especially once they're co-located in the same facility, and we can kind of get a little bit of a test period for some of these things in the Bellhaven Branch Library. So the short answer was yes. That was my long answer, and I'm circling back to the short answer is yes.
Okay. Anyone else have any discussion related to our calendar at this point? Anything you want to see put on it now, or do you think we've exhausted this topic and we can move on to the next? Should we move on? Yes, thumbs up.
Didn't exhaust it. It was pretty
I
blank.
need to
So there
ask
was a
a
lot
yes
to
or no
fill in.
question at the end. I'm getting better at that, I hope.
So
Okay.
If Chair Hadovich, if it would help, I could maybe go back over what I heard and make sure I didn't miss anything.
That would be great. Can you maybe, while you're doing that, it's helpful for me to be looking at the calendar.
Yes. So
Okay.
what I heard was, and I haven't typed this in, but
No,
I
that's
heard bringing up the council, the commission's update to council in March, the emergency prep policy in June, as well as the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy, both in June. Talking about adding a couple of standing items to the commission's calendar, one of them being updates on the Menlo Park Community Campus, and the other one in sort of the near term being rebuilding library and community services for post-COVID. We also saw, I heard to bring back in next month in February, sort of a timeline of the different policies for review as you had in your your current commission work plan. I think that's it. If I left anything off, let me know.
Nick, I jotted down looking to coordinate a joint meeting of the two
Joint meeting,
commissions,
that's right.
maybe in the summer timeframe,
in the
maybe
summer.
August. Yeah.
The only thing from my point of view that I think probably is a helpful thing to just have you touch on briefly each month and really just to give us a verbal update is just how you're tackling the ongoing challenges of actually providing library services during the COVID pandemic. So, it's such a unique situation, and every month it probably would be very helpful to know if any special successes have happened or unique challenges have become more pressing for you, but for us to just see how you're really successfully weathering this challenge, I think would be really enlightening. And
Absolutely.
I'm thinking for sure that when whoever goes to give the update to council, whether it's me or the next chair or someone else, to be able to speak to the way you've actually met all the challenges that have come out of this would be helpful.
Sure. I think you get an interesting window into that, both the challenges and successes with the responses to the
yes,
to the question box. So the online question box gives you a nice window into that. But yeah, we can certainly provide a quick update, and that may be as part of the sort of departmental update section that we.
Yeah, those actually are fantastic for that. So, okay, all right. I think we're ready to move on then. It doesn't look like we have a section D. I think we're going right from C, regular business, to E, informational items. Is that right? No, sorry, I have the wrong page. My notes are out of order. Sorry, everyone. Okay. Wait, C2, okay, C3. And then, okay, D1 departmental updates.
Right.
Menlo Park Community Campus Project.
Great. So just quick updates on these. I don't know if any of you attended the most recent city council meeting where the Menlo Park Community Campus got its final approvals and is moving forward. They will be bringing some portions of the project back for council consideration and input, specifically the pool. And the pool design is coming back in front of the council tomorrow night. But pretty much the project is a go. And the schedule as it is now has for decommissioning and deconstruction in the June, July, August time period. So we need to get our interim services up and running and ready to go by then. And there's a team that's working very diligently on that. Not only provision of the services, but also transportation to get the seniors and the folks who want to take classes over to the Burgess campus or to another site for some of the classes where some staff are working to try and see if they can't find still some locations in the Bellhaven neighborhood for classes. So we need to get those up and running. And then construction proceeding through the end of 2021, all through 2022, and facility opening, which is an aggressive and optimistic goal in spring of 2023. So not that far off. And if we had COVID all the way between now and then, it would probably just fly by. But hopefully we don't have COVID all the way between now and then. So I take that back, strike that from the record. So that's the update that we have. I included with the staff report the architect's presentation from that city council meeting, which is nice to look at, sort of the ideas for the exterior of the building that the architects were envisioning. So I'll stop there.
Great. Okay, anybody have a clarifying question, and then we can take public comment? Okay, Nick, any public comment related to the MPCC project?
If anyone has any public comment, any of our attendees at this time, please either use that raise hand function or type a message in the chat window. Seeing none.
Okay, then I think I'm going to follow my chair guidelines, and if it's okay with everyone, because we can do it either way, we can either open up for discussion on each of these items, or we can go through the 4 things that are related to the department updates, which is the MPCC project we just heard about, the library enterprise technology system, talk a little bit more about our work plan, and then the suggestion box. We can hit all 4 of those and then discuss all of them at the end. So would you prefer to talk about them one at a time, or just hear all 4 and then see where we are?
I'd prefer one if we could.
I'm sorry, what, David?
I'd prefer one at a time if we could, because otherwise it's going to be a mishmash.
Okay.
We'll have to go forth between material.
Okay, good. All right. Well, then I'm glad I asked that question. So let's slow it down then and have discussion now. Anyone that has comments, questions, concerns about the MPCC project, go ahead. David, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm looking at the floor plan. I think we've talked about this before. The 2-floor situation, the children's library on the first floor. Although the children's library appears to be isolated in the sense that there aren't multiple ways in and out of it. It has a door into the youth center, but it's like a main door from the hallway coming in from the arrival area. If I look at the second floor, like the maker space can only be reached through the library, the room called library, and the teen lounge. I mean, so is the library staff envisioning I guess I'm still trying to figure out my sense what the different use for that means. Seems like it's integrated, so it's like I can give up on that. But how do these different things play together so one doesn't interfere with the other, or that I mean,
Gotcha.
you guys have obviously seen the layout. So are there concerns on the library's part, or do you have some sort of enlightened look at this that it all makes some sense?
I think when when staff were looking at the design of the building and the layout, we were really thinking of how users would come in at different times of day to use different parts of the building, and also how different user groups would use the same part of the building at different times of day. So that makerspace, which in the morning, which is when it's envisioned that the seniors will be more active, because that's when they're more active now at the senior center. That makerspace might be used for a ceramics class for the seniors. During time when the after school program is going, it might be used as sort of craft or maker space for the after school program, sliding into maybe teen programming that has to do with the library teen group or other teen users in the afternoon. And then into the evening, where it might be, because it opens out onto one of the patios. I think it's the only patio now. And earlier iterations of the 3-story design, there were other patios. It might actually be sort of a space for programming or maybe even events. So because it looks out onto the park and has sort of an indoor-outdoor feel, we were hoping we could have the makerspace have some things that we saw at other library makerspaces, which were like rolling tables with lockable wheels, so you could really reconfigure the interior space and maybe even clear it out and have maybe as an event space. So I don't know if that's answering your question, David, but that's kind of how we were envisioning it. And the children's space on the ground floor also opens out onto a deck and a sort of enclosed play area that was also envisioned as being sort of an outdoor storytime area onto the back of the building. So there's three ways in and out of the children's room on the main floor. And Sean, jump in if I left something out there.
I think you covered it well, Nick. The only thing I would add is that space, like the maker space and the teen space, those are really envisioned to be areas that there's always some kind of staff presence in those areas. So even if like a makerspace activity, like let's say a senior ceramics program that's like early in the morning before the library section's really open, there would still be department staff to sort of monitor that space. So the makerspace would still be available and accessible to that user group. Similarly with the teens. So from the library operational perspective, it should not be a problem and probably a benefit, because people kind of have to, pass through the library and experience it on their way to those spaces.
Kristen, I saw you had your hand up. Did you still have a question?
I was just thinking that having fewer doors on the children's library is probably a good choice to help parents keep a handle on their children.
Well, I have to admit, I've said this a few times. I think I sound a little like a broken record, but I don't quite see how, thinking back to when I used to visit the library regularly with my 3 young children, how it works if the children's section is isolated from the rest of it. Because I think, so are we going to have parents, you're going to be there for twice as long as you normally would be? Our children, everyone, whether it's teens or parents, all going to be in the children's library with the kids until the kids are done. And then we're all going to en masse move up to wherever the adult section is so that I can gather whatever my adult things are. And then we're going to loiter outside the teen section while our teen goes in to get whatever they're going to do. It just seems that if you're visiting it as a family, maybe once I'm actually on site, all of my sort of efficient mom trying to get a lot done in a short amount of time concerns will be alleviated. But right now I just look at this and think, logistically, how do I take my 3 kids that are at Laurel, Encinal, and Hillview to the library, get everything everybody needs, and get home in time to start making dinner. And anyway,
That's a great question and concern, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak to it just briefly. Which it kind of relates to at the ages at which children can kind of be in the library, not like completely unattended, but the parent or caregiver doesn't need to be in the same room. And that's very common in multi-story libraries, that a children's section might be on the first floor, but then most of the adult and other sections are on the upper floors. And so how that's handled is related to just the age limit, and I don't know what it is currently or what it will be in that building, probably somewhere around 7 or 8 years old, where the children's librarians are going to, ask that, the caregiver kind of needs to stay in the room with the child if they're below that age. Once they kind of get to that age, like 8 years old or so, they can be in the library on their own as long as their caregiver's in the building, so that they're nearby. So it should be possible for a family where there's children of the different ages. The small child, yes, maybe a parent or a caregiver or a sibling would need to kind of remain with the really small child the whole time, but otherwise they can kind of filter throughout the building and then regroup again right there at the ground floor, where the children's center is, for when they depart. So we think that functionally it'll work okay, and it kind of comes down to the ages at which the children can kind of be in the facility without a caregiver right there.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything related to either the library or just the entire thing? Okay, I think we are ready then to move on to Library Enterprise Technology System, which there was also a staff report related to.
Yeah, just a quick update to keep you guys in the loop about what's going on. The decision hasn't been made on the new enterprise system, and it's scheduled now to go to the city council in a couple of weeks on February 9th. I think that's a couple of weeks from now. So that means we sort of have a deadline now of a staff report that'll be due February 4th or so. So that's the time when we'll have that decision made, and absolutely will give you guys a heads up when that staff report comes out, so you'll know what the staff team who have been working on that have decided. Just quickly though, it's more than just staff from the library and community services departments, also city IT staff who are in there, because they're going to be tasked with implementing anything, a big piece of software like that, if the library withdraws from the PLS system.
And I'll just, if I could just add a little bit to that, it's the city council, I think, has expressed an interest in really understanding what are the options and potential impacts of either remaining in the Peninsula Library system or completing the withdrawal from the Peninsula Library system and going to a different enterprise technology software. And so in order to retain the maximum amount of flexibility and options for council, it's taken a little extra time to just ensure that we can preserve all of that flexibility for the council to make that decision. It was a close decision when they made the decision to notify PLS to withdraw back in July. And I think the council still wants to have some more conversation on that. So the staff's preparing, basically a menu of those options for the council for February 9th. And so since there's an active request for proposals and live bids, we also want to make sure that we preserve council's flexibility, as far as in response to bids that have been received so far.
Okay. Anyone, Kristen, I saw your hand up a minute ago. Did you still want to, you're good right now? Okay. Nick, actually, I think we have to open it up for public comment on this.
Yep. So if anyone, any of our attendees have a public comment they would like to make on this item, please click that raise hand function or type me a message in the chat window. And I do not see any public comment.
Okay, so if will we then be putting this particular item back on our calendar for February, just to hear where you are, the update on that? Okay.
That's a good point, because you'll be meeting on the 22nd and that will have been released in the interim. So yes, I'll put it back on for February.
Okay, so given that we're going to talk about it on February, did anyone have anything else they wanted to say on this topic, or can we move on and we'll come back to it? Okay, I'm going to take the silence to say we can move on. Library Commission work plan. We have touched on this a little bit earlier, but we can just revisit it briefly, I think. Did anyone want to say anything before we open this item up to see if there's a public comment on it? Okay, then Nick, would you check to see if anyone from the public would like to weigh in?
Sure, if anyone would like to make a public comment on this item, please press that raise hand button or type a message in the chat window, and I will recognize you. Seeing none, just to reiterate what I said a little earlier, I think seeing that city council goal setting was coming up this weekend, Sean and I talked and Sean and I and Katie talked and thought that it might be good to sort of put the Library Commission's current work plan there, just so you guys could have a look at it. Maybe if you're sitting in on summer or all of the council goal setting session, you could start to sort of think about how those goals and the commission's goals might work together. And so this one was meant sort of as a hey, heads up, you might want to take a look at this again in February. That's sort of what the intention was of putting it here on the agenda.
Okay, anyone have any comments or discussion related to our work plan? Would you all agree that it makes sense for us to look at it in February in light of what comes out of? I mean, I'm kind of laughing to myself thinking about how a year ago the city council had their commission meeting or their work plan, and none of us saw this coming. What has just transformed our lives this year. So I'm sure COVID will play a big role in anything that's moving forward. But Kristen, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, our work plan is finalized, right? Like approved? Isn't it?
We did approve it a few months
Right.
ago.
Commission has approved it. However, I don't think it's been formally presented to the city council for their approval
No,
yet.
because we haven't
been
had an opportunity to go in front of them. So we have a work plan that is our standing work plan, hobbled
And we might make some changes or we might not or something.
Right. I mean, everything that we do is in the context of what we can do during the pandemic. So the city council, I think, when they talk about what their priorities are on Saturday, if it is Saturday, they're going to be looking at what I think got bumped this year, how the financial constraints of the pandemic have affected what their ambitious goals were last year. And then they're going to be setting the tone for, I think, the way all the different commissions will react. So it definitely makes sense. I think we're going to be talking, I think it's on the February calendar. If it isn't, it should be, to talk about what came out of the city council's work plan, and then to revisit in light of that if we want to make any modifications to our own. And it looks like everybody's nodding that makes sense. So we'll continue with that. So the last item here is the suggestion box responses. And there was a staff report related to that. I wonder if we should just see if there's any public comment, and then we can just, Nick, you can fill us in and we can discuss it.
Sure thing. Any public comment anyone would like to make, please engage that raise hand feature. I like to do like Judy does. She holds up her hand, the raise hand feature, or type a message in the chat window and so that I can recognize you and you can speak to the commission. I don't see anyone asking for a chance to make a public comment.
Okay. Nick or Sean, did either one of you want to just give us a quick little verbal report on the suggestion box?
Sure. So the library has a physical, had a physical suggestion box. We've pretty much shifted to an online suggestion box during the shelter in place. The link to the suggestion box is on the library's webpage, the community service department's team's webpage, and it's also included as a link in the e-newsletters that go out every week, every couple of weeks. The e-newsletters go out, and so that's where most of the suggestions come from. We're a little behind with compiling them and getting them in front of you. As you notice, there are some from October, so apologies for that. It's a little bit of a catch up, but we tend to get a bunch of suggestions, questions, comments that come in right after the newsletter goes out. So that's what you see in the staff report there is just the collection of suggestions, questions, comments, and then the staff responses to them.
Okay, and I think we already asked for public comment, correct? So does anybody else have any comments or questions about it? Mayrin, I think you're raising your hand. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to actually read. I enjoy looking at all of those and really appreciate the human responses that you give out. And if anything, I noticed the patterns of the repeat ones. If our biggest challenge was that people want to donate books, I think we're doing the right. You know, our services are meeting the needs of our community. And the one that really hit me was one of the women, a woman who now, because of pandemic, having to work at home, she's been able to learn English. And so that one really, you know, that one piece just really sets the tone of like all the different services that are offered for our city that, you know, I as a resident appreciate utilizing too. And I think with the pandemic going on now almost a year, having all these wonderful varieties of services available to our community is really keeping people's spirits up, I think. So that's all.
Thank you. Anybody else want to say something about that? I'll say that I also enjoy reading them. I also feel like when I read those comments, I benefit because I did not realize that there was a URL for the all the videos that you post. And so reading that one comment where you listed the link, I went and looked at the two links that were in one comment and then saved them on my dashboard as things that I could go back and look at. And I was really glad to see them and then see, oh, I can go see how to plant the best tomatoes or how to harvest my seeds. So that was beneficial. The only thing that I had a lingering doubt about that I wondered is, I thought, do people understand that these comments that they're listing will become a public comment with a public response, and that it would, you know, be something like it's in our, I mean, you'd have to do a little hunting. It's not like it's on the front page of the San Francisco Chronicle, but is there some listing with the online comment box or the comment box at the library to say your comments may be read by the general public? And I was thinking about it in particular when you were solving the problem for someone where I think they were listing something about the delay in getting their books, and then you were problem solving for that person by listing the books that they had ordered and when you could get them. And although I have no idea who that person was, I was sort of, I guess, using my legal training a little and my volunteer training to see whenever you do something like that for somebody, the feedback can be, I didn't want everyone I know to know the books I'm looking for at the library. So that made me think, is there a little caveat that people understand their comments may be read by a wider audience than just you?
Yeah, there is. We try to strip out, you know, we don't use whole names. And now that you mention it, I probably should have stripped out the the titles of the books that we were talking about there. So I'll remember that for next time. For ones that are sort of kind of compliments and things like that, we always ask the person who makes the comment if we can share it with staff and the library commission. So we do ask those folks. So yeah, I'll have to be a little more careful to strip out
And you know
other
what?
sorts
I
of
will agree.
identifying information and things like that. Because people, it is, you know, we care a lot about privacy, and one thing that we're very concerned with, and I should have been a better at, is making sure that you're not inadvertently revealing something about someone by their book borrowing or material borrowing habits.
I think I'm nitpicking, and honestly, when I'm nitpicking, I'm really nitpicking because I don't think that I could have gone back and known who that was. But when I was looking at, oh, here's the titles that you read, I thought, gosh, I can see how someone might feel like this was a little, you know, I'm playing devil's advocate here just to make sure that people know, oh, this is to improve services, and actually it might be discussed, you know, in a more public setting.
Yeah.
But really, I
Point well
benefit,
taken.
just like Mayrin said, I enjoy reading them. And the takeaway for me is upside. And I think it's just as valuable for our commission as having public comments come in when we're having a meeting. And I think that we could probably use those comment cards, questions, and then the responses to make any reports that we were going to give as to the commission's role, and also library services to the city council and beyond, a much more in touch and accurate report. So I find it to be a really valuable resource, and I'm glad you share it with us.
Yeah, thank you. The staff find it very valuable and interesting as well. We share those suggestion box questions and replies with the entire staff as well. So.
Okay, well, it looks like we are at advisory body member reports. Any reports from library commission members since the last meeting? And the last meeting was in November. So does anyone have anything that they want to update us with? Alan, go ahead.
Yeah, so last week, the Friends of the Menlo Park Libraries had a meeting. Sean and Nick both attended. You know, sadly, there's not a whole lot to update, but I think that in and of itself is an update. You mentioned, Mayrin and others earlier, that people are posting inquiries about what to do with books they'd like to donate. You know, you spend 10 months in your house, you may want to clean out the closet or clear a bookshelf. And I think that's what's gone on for a lot of people here. Sadly, the folks can't go into the mole hole, and they can't safely do that at this point for a variety of reasons, obviously. So currently, there has been discussion, but no clear plans or decisions about looking for a third-party site or being able to set this up in, let's say, non-commercial space in downtown, you know, on the main commercial drag where there's empty stores. So right now they're in pretty much a holding pattern as well. So unless Nick and Sean have something else that I may have missed as a highlight there, go ahead, Sean.
No, I think you covered it well, Alan, but for the benefit of the newer commissioners, the mole hole is the Friends of the Libraries, how they refer to the basement of the main library, which is where they sort their books. Because it's a very dark place underground, so.
Yeah.
And apparently no moles are harmed in the process of sorting
Never seen a mole
books.
down there. Yeah.
The moles keep to themselves, so it's all good. Thank you, Sean. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Also, I can report, just related to the Library Foundation, we actually have our monthly board meeting coming up this week. So I'll defer any update on that to next month. And related to the Historical Association, I don't have an update for any of you related to a meeting, but I did want to I think it's worth making a quick mention. If any of you sign up for the e-newsletter in Menlo, you may have seen this, but I saw it there this week. In Menlo mentioned a really wonderful collection of letters that are that were donated to the Historical Association and are available on a link at the Historical Association's website, that were written by a 30-year-old enlisted man who was in the Army in 1918 in Camp Fremont here in Menlo Park. And it was, I think, about 18 letters that he wrote in the fall of 1918 from Camp Fremont home to his parents, where he actually contracted the Spanish influenza. And he also is just sort of recounting what's going on in his day-to-day life, and some buddies of his that died, and just what was going on. And it maybe took me 20 minutes or so to read the whole thing, but I thought it was just a fascinating little look backwards from 100 years ago. And those were donated to the Historical Association. So you should be able to find the link. If any of you are personally interested, I'd be happy to send it to Nick and he could send it to you. But I enjoyed reading that, and that is made possible because of the Historical Association that resides in the basement very close to the mole hole. So anyway, those are my two reports related to the affiliates that I cover for us. Okay, final chance to say your piece. If not, I'm ready to close the meeting. So I wish you all well until next month. All right.
Thank you all. Lovely to see you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody. Good
Stay
night.
safe. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.